people didn't like that you were making it. It seemed
No,
like.
yeah, there was a lot of opposition to it. I think if you ever hit on that subject matter, you're going to get people going.
And I don't think you're denying the facts. Otherwise, hey, well, I'm just hiding my head in the sand. It's not so much that. It's just not magnifying the negative. And like I talk about in the book, that I am a masterpiece.
What happens when a Hollywood icon, known for risking everything for his faith, speaks out against one of America's richest pastors? The result is a flashpoint unlike anything seen before in religious and celebrity circles. This is a story of clashing beliefs, vast fortunes, and a faith that has divided millions. Joel Osteen's carefully crafted image as a beacon of hope faces a crack that goes beyond headlines. When wealth meets spirituality, how do we measure true faith? And what happens when millions start demanding answers? The unexpected challenge from Mel Gibson has pushed those questions into the spotlight. Mel Gibson's faith journey. Mel Gibson is far from a stranger to controversy, but his faith has always been deeply personal and hard-earned. Unlike many celebrities who casually trade opinions, Gibson's beliefs come bundled with real sacrifice. He famously put $30 million of his own money into making The Passion of the Christ, a film about faith and suffering no major studio wanted to touch. That choice nearly cost him his career, but it was fueled by a period in his life when wealth and fame brought no peace, only profound inner turmoil. His return to faith wasn't a lighthearted decision. It was a lifeline that led him through dark, painful times. This experience shaped how he relates to faith today, giving his words a weight that audiences rarely hear from public figures. When Gibson speaks about religion or spirituality, he does so from the scars of personal struggle and commitment, not the safety of brand or image. His story goes beyond Hollywood glitz. It's a story of persistence in the face of rejection and criticism. This is why, when he turned his attention to Joel Osteen's ministry, it wasn't just idle talk. It was a careful, considered challenge from someone who has walked a hard path. Gibson's faith has come with consequences, including losing friends, opportunities, and professional goodwill. Yet he never backed down from what he believed, even when the cultural tide was against him. This contrasts sharply with many who find comfort in faith that asks little sacrifice in return. His credibility comes from having gone through hard times because of his faith, not despite it. That background sets the stage for why his recent comments about a megachurch pastor have such resonance. There's a clear sense that Gibson is not interested in sparking drama simply to grab headlines. When the discussion turned to Joel Osteen and the world he's built, Gibson spoke about patterns and principles rather than naming names outright. He described a faith that becomes a product, packaged for mass consumption and stripped of accountability. It's a faith designed to keep people comfortable and loyal, rather than challenged or transformed. Without full disclosure, that description already put many wondering who he was referring to. Behind these words lies an implicit comparison between two very different models of faith. One that costs something, blood, pain, personal sacrifice, and another where faith seems to translate directly into comfort, wealth, and celebrity. Gibson's own spiritual journey gives him a unique vantage point to critique this latter version. It's not coming from a distance, but from a place of lived contradiction between hardship and triumph. This tension is crucial for understanding the impact of Gibson's remarks. He stands as someone who has weathered storms of his own making and emerged shaped by suffering. His willingness to speak openly holds a mirror up not just to a megachurch pastor, but to a broader culture that embraces faith as a commodity. For many, this will be a first real challenge to the polished, familiar messages they've grown accustomed to hearing. Understanding Mel Gibson's deep connection to his faith is essential before delving into the world he challenges. Joel Osteen's ministry empire. Joel Osteen stands as one of the most recognizable faces in modern American Christianity, but his kingdom is more than just a church. It's a vast empire. His Lakewood Church once filled a 16,000-seat former NBA arena in Houston, regularly drawing over 40,000 people each week. His sermons are broadcast worldwide, in over 100 countries, and his books consistently top the New York Times bestseller lists. This scale of influence is unprecedented, making him a spiritual authority for millions. Osteen's image is carefully curated. The constant smile, designer suits, and polished delivery give him the air of a media professional as much as a pastor. This persona has helped him craft a message that resonates deeply with a wide audience seeking hope, motivation, and positivity. The church operates with extraordinary organizational capacity, resembling a corporation more than a traditional place of worship. Annual incomes for Lakewood reportedly reached nearly $90 million in 2017, a staggering figure for any religious institution. But with such influence, inevitably comes scrutiny and skepticism. The size of the platform means that ordinary questions can become magnified controversies. The church's charitable giving, for example, reportedly represents just over 1% of its income, around $1.2 million in that same year. For critics, that number is a glaring imbalance, particularly in a city that once faced one of the worst natural disasters in American history. Supporters argue context is missing and that the church has done meaningful charity work, but the low percentage prompts deeper questions about priorities. Personal wealth adds fuel to the fire. Joel Osteen's estimated net worth exceeds $100 million, further propelled by lucrative book deals, speaking fees, and media ventures. His personal lifestyle, including a 17,000-square-foot mansion worth more than $14 million, stands in stark contrast to many in his congregation and broader society. For millions of followers, his smile embodies hope and spiritual warmth. For skeptics, it represents a performance so rehearsed, it's hard to see where authenticity ends. The gap between Osteen's on-stage message and off-stage lifestyle has grown difficult to overlook. Critics argue that wealth accumulation on such a scale, living so close to areas of economic struggle, raises uncomfortable questions about the sincerity of the ministry's mission. For those inside the church and those watching from outside, this divide colors how the ministry is perceived. Many wrestle with reconciling Osteen's message of hope with the glaring material realities that surround him. This empire, built on faith and vast fortune, exists at a crossroads where spiritual leadership, wealth, and public accountability collide. The prosperity gospel controversy. At the center of the debate about Joel Osteen's ministry lies the prosperity gospel, the belief that material wealth and success are direct rewards for genuine faith. This doctrine has powered Lakewood's expansive reach and personal fortune, but remains one of the most contested ideas in modern Christian theology. Its appeal is straightforward and hopeful. Believe deeply, maintain positivity, and God will bless you with abundance. This message resonates with millions seeking tangible proof of divine favor. Yet, prosperity theology has long faced serious biblical challenges, especially from well-known passages such as Matthew 19, verse 24, which warns it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. These scriptures stand in tension with the promise of wealth as a sign of faithfulness, creating a theological rift many find problematic. The tension complicates how Osteen's teachings are received among mainstream Christian traditions. What makes this debate urgent is the fact that Osteen's message genuinely helps many people. Those who are hurting, excluded, or financially burdened have found comfort and motivation in his words. His ministry creates real emotional and social benefit, offering encouragement in difficult times. Critics, however, argue that positive impact does not exempt a doctrine from theological scrutiny or potential dishonesty. One difficult question that the prosperity gospel glosses over is what happens to faithful people who remain poor, suffer illness, or lose loved ones. If wealth is the reward for faith, then what does poverty or hardship signify? This silence is a profound problem for those walking through hardship with genuine belief. The prosperity gospel has answers for blessings, but none that fully explain the storms and losses millions face. leaving many without satisfying consolation. Joel Osteen's vast platform means that these theological tensions affect a huge audience. It complicates the spiritual lives of millions seeking hope, but also grappling with complex realities. The doctrine's simplicity masks a profound dilemma about faith, suffering, and divine justice. For many observers, these inconsistencies grow harder to overlook as the ministry's wealth and influence expand. The prosperity gospel's success cannot be understood purely as a matter of persuasion. It thrives because it speaks to deep desires for security and hope in uncertain times. It offers a narrative where faith visibly and materially transforms life, an enticing, and for many, essential message. Yet the cost is a fragile theology that struggles with real-world suffering. The divide between personal sacrifice and public success deepens as we look at how Osteen's ministry responded in crisis, Hurricane Harvey, and public response. In August 2017, Hurricane Harvey unleashed devastating flooding on Houston, dropping over 60 inches of rain in what became the wettest tropical storm in United States history.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Let's get straight to the breaking news. Harvey provoking an unfolding flooding disaster in America's fourth largest city, Houston, Texas.
The catastrophe displaced more than 30,000 people almost immediately, with families stranded on rooftops and emergency shelters overwhelmed within hours. During this urgent crisis, institutions with resources and space were called upon to help. At the heart of Houston sat Lakewood Church, occupying a 66,000-square-foot former NBA arena with 16,800 seats, full kitchens, childcare facilities, and dormitory spaces. It looked like a lifeline waiting to be opened. Joel Osteen's church, with an immense congregation and a global platform preaching that God's people show up for each other, had the capacity to offer significant aid that could have defined his ministry on the grandest positive scale. Instead, 2 days after the storm made landfall, Lakewood announced on social media that the building was inaccessible due to flooding. This message clashed sharply with videos circulating online that showed a largely undamaged exterior. Public skepticism grew rapidly, fueled by eyewitness footage of the parking structure and social media challenges to the church's claim. The delay to open the doors sparked anger and confusion among Houstonians and the broader public. A viral satire about a luxury yacht cruise handing out Osteen's books amplified the perception that the church was out of touch with the crisis. Under mounting pressure, Lakewood finally opened its doors on August 29th, sheltering thousands of families and donating over $1 million toward rebuilding efforts. Houston even declared an official day recognizing Lakewood's relief contributions in 2018. Yet, the damage to the church's reputation had already taken hold. For many, the image of a megachurch locking its doors while the city drowned became a lasting symbol of disconnect. The church's delayed response was seen not simply as a logistical issue, but a reflection of long-standing doubts about how compassion was measured, from sermons preached to actions taken. Critics pointed out that this moment exposed a gap between the compassion performed on Sunday mornings and the kind demonstrated when real costs were involved. To Joel Osteen's defenders, the delay was understandable, given flooding and safety concerns. They highlighted the eventual aid provided and the church's broad impact, emphasizing the difference between perception and circumstance. But for the public and many observers, the optics of hesitation far outweighed the later assistance. The timing was, in their eyes, a failure of leadership in a time where faith demanded more than words. This Houston moment crystallized frustrations about the cloud hanging over megachurches. When problems rise, should ministry leaders act swiftly with tangible help? Or is image and message enough? It forced a reckoning around the balance between spiritual leadership and practical responsibility, questions that had long simmered but had never been so visible. The storm not only revealed cracks in ministry, but also set the stage for an unavoidable confrontation between public faith and celebrity scrutiny. Mel Gibson's public criticism Mel Gibson's vocal dissent came at a moment when the gap between faith's promise and practice was glaringly visible. Interviewed on live television to discuss his upcoming film Flight Risk, Gibson instead focused on a broader issue few dared to address openly. Without naming names, he described a pattern of ministries treating faith as a product to be sold, where sermons offer comfort instead of challenge, and audiences are given experiences they gladly pay to repeat. He contrasted shepherds who lead toward hard truths with performers who cater to an easy crowd. His critique directly touched on wealth amassed by some religious leaders that contradicted the very scriptures they cite to justify their fortune. Gibson's comments struck a chord because anyone familiar with Joel Osteen's story could see the silhouette he painted: the prosperity doctrine, Lakewood's reported $89 million revenue with only 1.3% given to charity, the delayed Houston response, and a $16 million mansion nestled near struggling neighborhoods. Though not named, the identity was unmistakable. The response to Gibson's statements was immediate and polarized. Many, long discomforted by celebrity ministry culture, found validation in his words. To them, this was a voice of real credibility breaking through layers of silence and smiles. Others pointed to Gibson's personal struggles and public controversies, citing him as unfit to cast stones. Both sides held merit, but neither diminished the urgency of the questions he raised. Joel Osteen's silence in the wake of the viral clip spoke volumes. His social media activity continued with routine devotionals as if nothing had shifted. This quiet response was seen by supporters as dignified restraint, while critics read it as the loudest admission possible that no answer would be given to serious concerns about how blessings are used. The man preaching abundance stood mute when asked about its alignment with gospel directives. The conversation quickly consumed social media and news platforms, spotlighting a broader crisis in religious accountability. Beneath the noise lay a fundamental question no one had answered honestly. When does a ministry shift from being about God to being primarily about the person running it? Joel Osteen is far from the first wealthy pastor, but his high visibility means he carries enormous responsibility. His reach spans millions each week, creating influence that demands transparency and authenticity. The scale of his platform leaves no room for simple deflection with smiles or silence. Beyond individual critique, the moment called for a renewed public dialogue on what spiritual leadership must embody in the modern age. As the debate rages on, the question remains not just about one man or ministry, but about the future of religious leadership in a world watching more closely than ever before. The broader question of accountability. The intense spotlight on Joel Osteen's ministry raises a question that goes far beyond one man or one church. The question of accountability in modern spiritual leadership. With millions tuning in every week and billions generated through books, television, and speaking engagements, celebrity pastors like Osteen wield immense influence. This influence comes with a responsibility that cannot be ignored or evaded. When faith shapes the lives of 20 million people each month, questions about integrity, transparency, and the true reflection of one's beliefs become essential. Accountability means examining both the message preached and the life lived. Osteen's critics emphasize the stark contrast between his lavish lifestyle, complete with a 17,000-square-foot mansion and multi-million-dollar assets, and the modest, charitable giving reported by his church. While defenders note that much of his wealth comes from book sales and speaking fees, not direct church donations, the perception of imbalance remains powerful. Transparency about finances, actions during crises, and alignment with scriptural teachings becomes a vital part of maintaining trust in spiritual institutions. The pattern Osteen has followed for decades, silence in the face of controversy, a constant public smile, and steady growth of his congregation, reflects a strategic choice. Whether this is wisdom or avoidance is debated, but it undeniably postpones hard conversations. The inability or unwillingness to confront these challenges openly feeds skepticism and frustration among both followers and outsiders. Followers seek comfort and inspiration, but many also crave honesty and clarity about what faith demands in practice. This moment of reckoning isn't confined to Osteen alone. Across the religious landscape, the blend of faith, celebrity, and wealth prompts reflection about what believers expect from their leaders. When ministries morph into media empires, does spiritual accountability suffer for financial success? The public increasingly demands answers about how resources are used, how inclusivity is practiced, and how authentic leadership is demonstrated beyond the pulpit. The prosperity gospel movement experienced success because people wanted to believe that their faith would deliver them actual blessings and protection. People in unstable situations require hope, which they can easily understand. The question arises, which we need to solve. How do we explain faith to believe in its promises when people face actual suffering and loss and injustice which they endure? The process of honest evaluation requires people and groups to move past their basic needs so they can discover authentic spiritual realities. The faith requires believers to acknowledge their struggles, while they must not use dishonest methods to explain their experience. The ministries need to establish accountability systems which enable them to handle their charisma and message while they maintain their ethical obligations. The public argument between Joel Osteen and Mel Gibson reveals a deeper cultural and spiritual conflict which exists in society today. Religious groups must define authentic leadership during times when media visibility and wealth create either confusing or exaggerated effects on faith teachings. The outcome depends on pastors, and it requires all believers to show their requirement for openness and honesty, which they need to achieve. Mel Gibson's bold words have shattered the silence around one of America's most watched ministries, sparking a vital conversation on faith, wealth, and responsibility. This isn't just about one pastor. It's about what spiritual leadership should look like in today's world. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on these unfolding truths. Your voice matters in this important discussion.